Hey everyone, welcome back to Path to Play. It's Valentina.
And Rory.
We're back this week with another special holiday episode, and we're going to kick it off with Memory of the Day as we usually do. Today's Memory of the Day question for you, Rory, is what's been your favorite soccer trip ever that you've gone on?
I actually have a pretty good one for this. When I was in high school, I was lucky enough to go to the Netherlands with my academy team. We went there. We stayed in Rotterdam.
Nice.
I think that's the second biggest city after Amsterdam. It was super fun. We played in a tournament. I think we lost in the final, but we got to play some friendlies before it against some Eredivisie, which is the Dutch first division youth clubs, and so we got to play in their stadiums, which was really cool. And just overall, it was awesome. I think that was definitely the first time I'd ever been to Europe.
That's super cool. And did you go with just your teammates and your coach, or did parents go? How did you guys travel?
Yeah, it was mainly just the players and the coach. I wanna say, like, 2 or 3 parents went, and then one of the guys on the team was actually European, so his parents just met us there because one of them already lived somewhere around there, so I think there was a couple, but it was mainly just players.
Wow, that's very cool. I've never been to the Netherlands, and hopefully I'll get to go one day.
Definitely recommend.
That's awesome. So, hopefully, everyone that's listening had a great break. If you didn't have a break, hopefully, you just had some downtime throughout last week and into the weekend because all the Americans had a break. So, it's probably quiet. Rory, how was your long week and weekend?
It was good. Thankfully, I had 2 days off, so that was super nice. Made some good food and relaxed. How was yours?
It was good too. I had also 2 days off, so it felt like a long weekend. Probably could have used more time. Also visited Montreal, so that was pretty
Ah.
cool. And I would definitely recommend people to go visit Quebec, specifically Montreal. Anyways, today's special holiday edition episode, we're going to take it way back to the beginning of Path to Play. We actually launched this survey way before we even started building the website, before we started our Instagram page, before we even thought about the podcast, honestly. This was one of the first few things we did when we were thinking about the market research that we had to do, what people's pain points were, even though we already had an idea of what exactly was missing in the youth sports landscape. So, we want to cover key themes from basically things that people wish they knew and how we approached the initial ideas of Path to Play when we launched the survey.
Yeah, and this survey was sent to a bunch of people we know, and that was a mix of former players, coaches, parents. So it's really a cool variety of experiences. And I think going through it and looking back at the answers, one helped us a lot when building the site and starting this podcast, but also just was cool to see everyone's experience and the different reflections they had that because like I knew some of these people who filled it out and I guess I didn't realize that that's kind of how they felt or that was their experience. So it's a really cool learning moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's honestly the foundation of Path to Play is just bringing together everyone's perspectives and grounding our mission in people's experiences rather than trying to push people towards a certain path or journey. So there's obviously lots of great insights that we've pulled from this initial survey of Path to Play. The first question is around things that people wish that they knew. So what were some of the main themes that we found within this question?
Yeah, one of the main things was picking a good youth team, and people wish that they knew the importance of that. And a
Mhm.
lot of things that people also talked about in this was the pricing. So, just the general pricing of youth clubs. Is it worth it? Not knowing the level, like, is this club where my players should be, or should they be higher or lower? And then also the goals of the club. Do they want to develop kids, or do they just want to win now and sacrifice the development? I think we've talked about choosing a club that fits your kid or yourself in a way where they are developing and getting better. So that would be a good thing to listen to or read about. But then another thing that we haven't really been able to talk about is the level. And that is something we will dig into later. We'll talk about the different levels of youth, where to start, where you want to be, depending on where your goals are.
Yeah, and I will say I think this bucket was one that I had pretty similar expectations to the answers that we got. So it makes sense that there's a lot of these pain points that are present across different perspectives. The next question that we asked was around what lessons learned were the biggest ones and any advice that our listeners would now give to other athletes, parents, coaches, everyone under the sun in the youth sports world.
Yeah, these were definitely pretty interesting, and I think they're very good lessons learned and definitely advice that I would pass on as well. One big one was try as hard as you can since it'll open more doors for you. And I think that's obviously very true and something that you hear a lot is you get out what you put in.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I think I resonate a lot with these answers. I will say I was relatively surprised with how reflective some answers were. I don't think that I necessarily expect that from everybody, and I don't really think about the emotional aspect as much, or it's not as top of mind for a lot of people. So I was very surprised with some of these answers, including themes around enjoying the sport, acknowledging that it might go fast. And this was from, again, variety of perspectives, but were there any that surprised you or that you weren't necessarily expecting in this bucket?
No, the none that really surprised me. I would say a lot of them are kind of ones where you don't think about it in the moment, and then once you're done, I feel like a lot of people share that feeling of like, "Dang, that did go by fast. I probably should have tried to enjoy it a little more."
Mhm.
And then also one that I thought was really interesting and did connect with me that I had never thought about in the moment was if you're not enjoying it, make a change. I think in the moment you can easily get caught up with the expectations of others rather than yourself. And I think a couple people definitely shared that, which was very cool. And I think something that resonated with me.
I agree, and I'm honestly thankful for these lessons learned that were shared with us because I certainly could have used some in my time as an athlete. And I think one of the last themes that came out of this was a big one, and it was that people do care and remember more of who you were as a person rather than the type of athlete that you might have been on the field, the pitch, any sport really. And I think as a person, that also entails how you were as a teammate. So I think that's a big one. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, maybe if you are a horrible teammate, you might also get remembered that way, but that's
Yeah,
not a really
true.
great way to get remembered.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was definitely something that I mean, it kinda makes sense when you look back at it, when you think like, "Oh, yeah, that person was a great teammate, so obviously we're still good friends, so our relationship is gonna
Mhm.
continue," so, yeah, it does make sense. But in the moment, you're like, "Oh, wow, that guy's the best player on the team. He's so cool," but then
Yeah.
it can fade.
A lot of kids and young athletes definitely forget what's important in the moment. You get caught up with trying to be in the crowd, and I think this is a really helpful, reflective, and impactful piece of advice.
Agreed.
The last question we asked and wanted to know about, which I think this one speaks a little bit in relation to the first question of what things people wish they knew. In this one, we asked, what was something that you would do differently? I noticed a few different themes within this question. What do you think were standout ones for you?
I think a cool one was don't compare yourself to others and just yourself and develop into your own player. Being able to just play your own game and enjoy it for yourself and not compare yourself to others is definitely something that can really help you enjoy just
Yeah.
playing in
And
general.
I think that this honestly is another great piece of advice in general, sports related or not, because as we all know, I think we all tend to perform better when we're loose, confident in ourselves, when we're just in the zone, and that oftentimes just happens when you aren't as focused on things that are happening around you, but more so on what you're bringing to the table, how you're showing up. Another thing that we noticed in the answers for this question was to focus on the coaches that are in the environment for where you're choosing to play or sport. We've definitely talked about this quite a bit in our episodes, specifically the ones where you're thinking about switching clubs or you're thinking about leveling up. I think your coach plays a huge role. Again, I think I'm reemphasizing here a point that we've very much already stated before, but I think that this is a really important factor in any sport and any development because whatever your goals are, if you have a coach that is good for you or your athlete, they will definitely be more inclined to hear your goals, your aspirations, your circumstances, how to help and support you through what exactly it is you're trying to get out of your sport. And I think that that just is a big factor in your experience overall for many years of sports or wherever you are in your stage of youth sport.
Yeah, I think a lot of the reflection for this specific part came based off people realizing how much coaches have an effect on their experience. That can obviously go either way. Like if you have a
Mhm.
great coach, you'd love it, but sometimes it can really negatively affect your experience. And so I think definitely finding a coach and a team where you can thrive would be very positive.
Now I'm curious, since we are sharing some of these themes and we're having these open conversations, what is something that you wish that you knew in your youth sports journey?
I think one thing I wish I knew is how much the landscape changes from when you're like 12 to 13 up until high school and college. When I was younger, I think I had some things not really go my way and I wasn't really playing as well as I thought I was or could. And I think that really made me question if I was good enough basically to play later on, and then it all changed so much. So I think that's one thing that would be good to know.
Yeah, and I think you definitely hit on this in your story podcast, and I think other podcasts in relation to how to level up and things like that. So that's important too, because I think it's very often that young athletes very early on get discouraged, whether that's from physical abilities or the external environment. I think it's really hard around that time period where you're still very immature and you can't really process on your own. Hence why you need that support. Hopefully you had a good coach, which
Yeah.
you did tell us you did.
I guess a simple way to say that was just being able to look at something with a broader lens, like, and being able to look farther down the
Mhm.
road.
It's part of the process though. I think everyone's probably experienced that to some extent because you're
Yeah,
so young.
definitely. Do you have a big piece of advice that you would give?
I honestly think that I am very aligned with some of the answers that were given for the lessons learned and advice you would give to someone. Genuinely, just don't take it that seriously. I think the times where I was playing loosely, feeling happy, and feeling like I was in a good environment and competing and trying my best is when I was at my best. And I do wish I had not taken some things so seriously, like I wish I had just relaxed a little bit. And it's fine to be competitive and it's fine to be driven and wanting to perform at your best at all times, but I think I had been a little bit more mindful throughout my youth sports journey, especially as I got older, I think I would have probably felt a little bit more content, especially when things weren't going my way because
Mhm.
much like you, I mean, I think that continues to happen, especially as you go into higher levels. It's very easy to feel discouraged and frustrated. The whole part of these learning experiences because you make a lot of these mistakes along the way. So even though a lot of us are offering things that we would do differently, I think a lot of our perspective and our knowledge and point of view that we have now is because we made a lot of these mistakes.
Exactly. You have to make the mistakes. That's part of the process.
Yeah. So we're probably giving a lot of cliche answers here, but I think they're genuinely very valuable. And I think clearly all of our listeners agree. So hopefully, some of you can pass these on to your friend, to your teammate, to a coach that perhaps wants to give this advice to their current athletes. And again, these are all from our community. So thank you for joining in to our second special edition holiday episode. We hope you enjoyed this advice as much as we did. And again, if you're part of the community, please feel free to share anything else that you have for us.
Thank you guys. See you next week.
See you next week.